The Messerschmitt Bf 109 is by and large the most polarizing aircraft in history. There are so many legends, myths, and speculations around it that no other plane can even get close. Not to mention all the different strong opinions on the opposite ends of the spectrum. No wonder that people still argue about its legacy to this very day. Some people say that it was a perfect aircraft for the time period. Others believe that it was a perfect example of how not to design planes. And just add that this fighter made it into production only because other options available at the time were even worse. Even people that actually used it in combat, or at least flew it, gave very conflicting accounts when speaking about their experience. So, the most produced fighter aircraft of the Luftwaffe. What was it, really? A complete failure, or an excellent combat vehicle fully worthy of its place next to the very best designs of the era? The truth is somewhere in the middle. The Bf 109 did have a list of well-documented flaws. Only a single box spar in the wing, the troublesome landing gear, the questionable arrangement of internal systems, a somewhat limited view from the cockpit because of the cockpit fairing. But you have to remember that wars are a complex affair. The flaws that we've just mentioned did matter, but they mostly had an impact only on the lowest, most tactical level. If we raise our sights to the operational level of war, the aircraft suddenly has a very important thing going for it. The Bf 109 was very easy to maintain and repair. Most of its systems and components could be easily replaced, and it was an extremely maintainable design overall. All of that means that the Messerschmitt Bf 109 could spend more time in the air than other aircraft of the same class. Pretty cool for a failure, huh? But the main strength of the design was that the aircraft was very easy to produce, which was a massive advantage on a strategic level. The fighter was designed in such a way that you could quickly set up the production of the aircraft in almost any industrial setting. It wasn't just German factories that produced the Messerschmitt Bf 109. During the war, the full production of the fighter was set up in Czechoslovakia, partial production was maintained in Romania, and some parts of the aircraft were made in Finland, among other places. The US and the UK annihilated German aircraft factories one after another, but German fighters just kept coming out of nowhere. So what if hundreds of pilots would only go on 2 or 3 combat missions and then perish? What mattered was that there were a lot of planes in the sky. On the strategic level of a global conflict, it's the numbers that win wars. Due to all of that, even after German engineers introduced the upgraded, modified versions of the fighter that no longer had the flaws of their predecessor, the original Bf 109 remained in production and stayed there till the very end of the war. That's right, that's exactly the same story as with the Yakovlev and Lavochkin aircraft. The I-185, for instance, was so much better than the La-5 in almost every way, but the latter was so damned easy to produce en masse that it persevered for years. With all that said, at some point, Germany simply couldn't churn the 109s out like candy bars anymore. Allied forces bombed the hell out of German bearing factories and did everything they could to disrupt the flow of aluminum supplied to Germany by Sweden and Norway. The last nail in the coffin was that Germany was suffering from massive fuel shortages throughout the whole war. Bombers from the USSR and their Western allies made a very thorough job of cutting Germany off from the Norwegian and Hungarian fuel by destroying oil wells and processing plants. However efficient your aircraft is, you simply can't fly it if you don't have access to proper fuel. Even after Germany capitulated to the Allied forces, there were still hundreds of Bf 109s left in German airfields. Many of them were fully operational and required only a pilot and some fuel to take to the skies once again. More importantly, even though German factories were pretty much bombed out of existence, the aircraft was so easy to produce that it didn't take a lot of time to start making them again. And that's exactly what happened. New Bf 109s were assembled both in post-war Spain, isolated by most countries of the world, and in liberated Czechoslovakia. In other words, on a strategic level, the brainchild of Messerschmitt proved to be truly unkillable. Regardless, the debate is still ongoing. This fighter aircraft, what was it really? An example of brilliant design created under the helm of a genius engineer? Or a defensive product created by a shrewd businessman who cared only about the bottom line? Who knows? That's for you to decide.